And we are live. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a wonderful Friday because it's Friday, September 23rd, 2022. And we're talking iPhone 14, iPhone 14 Pro. We're going to talk about it in depth. Karen and I both have the iPhone 14 Pros in hand. I have the black, she has the purple. We'll be talking a lot about those. But first, there's some interesting news that came out this week. We're going to talk about the NFL and Apple, what's going on there. We're also going to talk about iOS 16 bugs and how they're being fixed promptly, which is nice. And also some new features showing up in the iOS 16 beta. Plus, rumors and leaks abound about the October event that we're sure is probably coming sometime. And there's even more evidence of that because this is the iMore show. There's so much to talk about today. I am your host, Luke Filipowicz, an iMore writer. And I am joined, as always, by Karen Freeman, iMore contributor, and my lovely co-host. How you doing, Karen?
I'm doing well. A little bit of a cold, but if I sound a little funky, that's why. How you doing?
Not too bad. You may have noticed that my background has changed if you're watching live. I did move recently, so not fully set up in the new office here. As you can see, I pretty much have empty shelves behind me, but
You've got your live sign. That's what's important.
yeah, I had to have my live sign on. It's being held up right now by like a board game of mine because I haven't actually hung it up yet. But yes, I will eventually hopefully make this a nice little space, and hopefully it'll look nice on camera and it'll just be fun. And I'll probably like rotate stuff, little Easter eggs on the shelves. So always make sure you're watching those behind me. But yeah, moving's been fun. I'm excited to get this office kind of like set up and running. We'll dive a lot into the iPhone 14 and specifically the iPhone 14 Pro in a little bit, but let's hit some news first because there's actually been like some really interesting stuff just today. Apple finally signed a deal with the NFL, but it's probably not the one you're thinking of. Hilariously enough, everyone's kind of been expecting that NFL Sunday Ticket will eventually sort of make its way over to Apple. Sounds like that's still sort of in the works. There's been talks, there's been rumors, there's been lots of sort of like rumors and leaks about that. But Apple Music has actually signed a multi-year deal with the NFL to sponsor the Super Bowl halftime show. This is sort of an interesting move, I guess. I mean, obviously, you know, that the Super Bowl halftime show is one of the most watched. I mean, the Super Bowl is one of the most watched live events, you know, every year. And you know, having Apple kind of part of it, and I have to imagine this is sort of like a stepping stone to getting that Sunday ticket, right? I'm assuming, you know, some sort of commitment from Apple to the NFL probably looks good to the NFL. They're probably a little more willing to work with them, the more money they get from them, obviously.
Right. It's kind of a toe in the water, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's leading up to that. I think maybe this is the first one because the Sunday ticket rights don't expire for DirecTV until next season, if I have that correctly. So it wouldn't be until, you know, if and when any deal gets signed, it probably wouldn't be until a little later since the season still obviously has just started and is going now.
Right.
But this February 12th, when the 57th. Is that right? 57th. I'm not a big.
You asking me?
Yeah, I
Which
know.
Super Bowl we're on? Yeah, the Super Bowl in February.
Yeah.
Whichever
So it
one
will
it is.
officially be called the Apple Music Super Bowl halftime show, which it used to be Pepsi for quite a long time. So,
Yeah.
which, you know, it's not like Pepsi's a slouch in the money department either. And I'm sure they probably would have liked to keep that sponsorship. You would think. You never know what happens behind closed doors, but
Yeah, but it's such a smart partnership because I'm certain this is just speculation, but I'm certain that after the halftime show, which I'm sure will be spectacular, it will be immediately available for download on or for listening on Apple Music.
oh,
So,
totally.
you know,
Yeah.
they're just like feeding each other business, the
Yeah.
NFL and Apple Music.
And that's the other thing too. Not that like I don't know how much Apple. I don't know exactly how the deal works. I don't know how much Apple has like a say in like who performs and things like that. But like, regardless of who does perform, like their music's on Apple Music, right? Apple Music has a
Right. Oh, I would be pretty certain that Apple will have some say about
yeah,
who performs,
I
and it will be an artist that they have a good partnership with.
yeah, totally. So I'm I'm pumped about that. I think it'll be interesting. As someone who doesn't really watch football, I do tune into the Super Bowl halftime show pretty often because it's usually a pretty good spectacle. I really liked last year's, which was like, you know, just a whole array of like kind of early 2000s hip hop and things like that. And it was really good. Eminem and Snoop Dogg and so many
Yeah,
other.
yeah, and the millennials were going nuts with
Yeah,
the nostalgia
yeah,
for that
yeah,
show, but every generation, I mean, I didn't watch it, but I heard it was spectacular
yeah.
from
It was
all different
the
people.
the Super Bowl doesn't really do these things half cocked. They kind of go fully into it,
Right,
right? So
it's all in, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But I have to imagine this is sort of the first steps of what we'll see Apple and NFL do. We know that Apple's at least in the conversation, and it seems to be pretty deep into the conversation with getting that NFL Sunday ticket over to their rights to them. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But I have to imagine, this is Apple's kind of way of sort of getting their toe in the water and being like, look, we have money that we will give you. Like, give us stuff and we will give you, like, we can make this a beneficial partnership. So
right,
I think this is
right,
the first step in that direction.
for
So
sure, and when Apple makes money for the NFL through this halftime show, then NFL is certainly gonna be more inclined to let them take over the broadcasting.
yeah, exactly. So I'm interested to see what'll happen and who's going to perform this year and things like that. That'll get announced later into the season, and I'm interested to see who's on the ticket, what's it going to look like, how different is it going to be from the Pepsi show from years past. So I think Apple will be keen to make it a big splash. So I think they'll use all their influence that they have and their stake that they have in this to make it a really good program. So should be a good halftime show. So obviously, as we know, the iPhone 14 and iPhone 14 Pro launched last week and got into people's hands on Friday. People have been getting shipments ever since. There's probably still people waiting on their iPhone 14 Pro since the shipping dates were slipping pretty quickly. But iOS 16 also officially released a little earlier than that. But there's been some multiple issues that people have been experiencing, and some even specifically on the iPhone 14 Pro. Luckily, Apple just this week released iOS 16.0.2, which is a new version of the iOS 16 software. You should get it. Even if you're not necessarily experiencing bugs, you never know when they can pop up. And this one did quash a lot of very interesting bugs. So like one of the weird ones that was happening was the camera was vibrating
Yeah, I heard
because
about that, but I didn't experience it at all. Did
yeah,
you?
I didn't either. But certain iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max users were finding that in third-party camera apps, so like Snapchat, TikTok,
Yeah.
Instagram, when they're trying to make reels or stories or anything like that, that their camera, because of the stabilization in the camera, there's like a little vibration motor in there, and it would be
Okay.
like vibrating while it's trying to take video or photos in these like third-party apps. It didn't seem to affect Apple's built-in camera app. You can
Okay,
take
that's why
video.
it didn't affect me because I don't use any other
Yeah.
camera apps. Do you use any of those? Or
I
had you
I
used any of them since you got the iPhone 14 Pro?
I mean, once I heard about the bug, I tried it out, and I didn't experience anything.
Okay.
But I don't use it a ton, so I don't know exactly how frequent it was happening. Like maybe you had to use it more. I'm not sure. But this fixes that bug, which is good because from some of the stuff I'd been seeing online, the people who were affected by this, like it really made shooting in those apps or using it pretty much made it impossible to actually like do anything or get any
Right.
like clear photos or clear videos. So TikTokers and Snapchatters and all that, you're hopefully you're good now. So make sure you download 16.0.2. But there's a couple other ones that came up too, most notably the copy and paste bug. And this one,
Oh, yeah. That I had. That was super annoying. I'm like, "Why is it asking me if I wanna paste what I just copied?"
yeah. So if you don't
Super
know
weird.
iOS will do this thing. It's one of the privacy features where when apps sort of have to talk to each other to copy and paste and to grab things from the universal clipboard, it'll sometimes let you know and just be like, hey, is it okay that this app is pasting from here or copying from there or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's meant as a privacy feature, and it's useful, don't get me wrong, but there was this bug where it was like constantly asking you every time you paste something, even if you like were pasting multiple things between the same two apps, which was not the expected behavior.
Right.
It's
And
not
there's
supposed
no
to
option
ask
to
you.
turn it off. I
Yeah,
mean, to have that for somebody who wants it, that's great, but let it be a setting,
yeah.
not a consistent,
But
response.
Apple had confirmed earlier in the week that it was acting up. It wasn't acting quite as it's supposed to. It's supposed to have some contextual awareness. So like if you paste something from Safari to your notes, once and you do it again, like literally like 2 seconds later, it's not supposed to ask you again. It's supposed to understand like, oh,
Right.
they probably understand this is happening. It's not a big deal. But so that was annoying. And so Karen, you said you were experiencing it?
Oh, yeah, like multiple times a day.
Yeah, so I didn't experience it once again personally, but it looked pretty frustrating to deal with, especially since Karen said there's no way to like turn off the feature or kind of like scale it back. So that also should be fixed in iOS 16.0.2. And then there's just a couple other weird ones too, where like sometimes the display on this wasn't even just new devices, but even older devices, when you were like during device setup, they would just go black. Like the phone was on, but the display would just show nothing,
Yeah.
which makes it pretty hard to set up your phone if you can't see what you're doing.
Yeah, no, I didn't experience that one. This was like the easiest setup I think I've ever had, and I was worried because of the eSIM card and because I have a
Right.
weird
Yeah.
carrier situation where
Mm,
I'm not the primary person on the account. Um,
mm.
so I was worried, but it was like super smooth.
Yeah, and then there was a few other bugs like voiceover kind of screwing up after if you rebooted your iPhone. Sometimes it would like screw up voiceover, which obviously is a very important accessibility feature. So I'm glad
Right.
that's getting fixed. And then just some touch input, uh, the screen being unresponsive to touch input on like on some older iPhones, like the iPhone 10, 10R, and 11. After they've been serviced was also something that they noticed in iOS 16. So that's also been sort of fixed up. So very, very important update that fixes some essential bugs. So if you are experiencing any of those, or if you just want to make sure you don't, make sure you download these. I haven't dug into it too much yet because this literally just came out like yesterday, kind of midday. But I haven't really heard. I've from what I understand, it fixes those bugs and it seems to be fine. And there hasn't been any other problems with it. But if you are experiencing other stuff, let us know and we'll definitely sort of kind of dig into it. But yeah, so download iOS 16.0.2 if you experience any of that. And speaking of iOS 16, in the newest developer beta, so the iOS 16.1 beta 2, it updates the battery percentage feature so that it actually shows the battery icon going down. So I'll try and show you it here on the screen for people who are looking. I don't know if you can actually see that very
You,
well.
you really can't.
Yeah, it doesn't quite want
A
to
little.
see it, but
Yeah, I mean,
basically,
if you're showing it, it's very hard to see
yeah. But
on the screen.
before
Yeah, you can kind of see. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So before, what would happen when they first introduced the feature again, I guess reintroduced the feature since it was a feature that was on all iPhones before the iPhone 10 came along, um, is it used to just, you would see the number inside the battery indicator and there would be like a full bar behind it for visibility reasons, right? So you would just see a number inside the battery icon, which
Yeah.
wasn't a very great implementation because it made it really hard at a quick glance to like, you had to like think about it. You had to be like, oh, my number says 50, but my battery looks full, because we've gotten so used to just
Right.
reading the battery indicator that it was kind of
There's like
weird.
a cognitive dissonance.
Yeah. So I didn't like that very much. I think we all talked about that. However, this new one, I think I'm okay with. Is it as absolutely as good as it was pre-notch? I don't think so. I still think I would like the percentage outside the battery indicator to get the best sort of visibility. However, actually being able to see the battery go down and not just see a number in a solid bar is an improvement. Karen, you're still not a big fan though, right?
No, I don't love it. Yes, it is, I guess, an improvement that you can actually see the battery going down, but I also think it's at the cost of visibility, especially if you're in an app where the background is kind of grayish as opposed to very dark or very light. When you're in that sort of halfway middle, your numbers are going to be two different colors. It's weird. I don't love it. I wish they just would go back to how they did it 5 years ago. It made much more sense to me. If they're gonna bring the feature back, like, bring it back right.
Yeah,
But I
and
guess it's better than nothing. I guess it is an improvement, and it's better than not having an option to have the number in there at all. And yes, I realize I could just turn it off and go back
mhm.
to having no number at all. But I am keeping it, so obviously I don't hate it that much, but, um, I don't know. It could be better.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy they've updated it. I agree in the fact that, it I agree that it's not that, it's not as good as just having them separate where it's the easiest to read, the easiest to see. As it does, when you swipe down into the control center, obviously it has both of them side by side, which
Right.
is how it used to be all in the olden days anyways. Um, yeah, it's not as good as that. I think it's a pretty big upgrade from what it was before. I agree there's still some visibility issues though. Like in fact, right now I'm at 56% and it's
And
cutting
the
it's kind of cutting the six in half.
yeah,
And that's making the six a little hard to read. It's like I can see the five clearly because it's in like the full battery part, but the six is kind of half in, half out, and that makes the six a little
right.
awkward to read. So I understand that. And I think
Yeah.
hopefully we'll see more improvements, but at this at the same time, I'm not sure how. I mean,
I don't think we will.
I don't know if we will. Yeah, it's hard to say. I think it's just a feature for people who really want it. I
I
think
think
like
Apple's like, "Here, this is it. Take it or leave it."
yeah,
So, I could turn it off in settings if I get fed up with it, but
yeah, and there's the like other ways like the battery widget which you can put on your
yeah.
lock screen or
Yeah, of course, and
your
it's right in the, it's easy enough to find with a touch or a swipe, and
yeah.
there's different
So,
options.
but we'll see. Maybe iOS 16.1 is only in second beta. It might get another couple versions before it's officially launched. So we'll have to see as time goes on. Um, yeah. Let's move over to the October event, which we have been sort of hearing more about. And now it's looking even more like there probably is going to be one, though I don't think any of us had too much doubt. However, nothing has been officially announced. Who knows? Maybe it won't come. However, Apple has officially announced that macOS 13, which is macOS Ventura, and iPadOS 16, which originally had a due date of fall uh, 2022, which some of us we had thought was September, and then we heard it was going to be pushed back, blah 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 blah. But now, according to its website, both software updates are coming in October. So no official date, no like exact date rather, but it will be happening next month, which is also when we're sort of expecting iPads and Macs to be launched, another event to be happening. So this probably lends even more credence to that. I'm assuming they'll have an event probably early to mid October, and then you'll probably see iOS 16 and macOS Ventura probably pretty shortly after that. And then you'll probably see new devices even a little bit shortly more, or a little bit further after that even. So
Yeah, that makes
um,
sense, and that might just be the way Apple does it going forward.
yeah, I think like it's great when we get to WWDC in June and they launch a bunch of new features and they talk about what they want to do with the next version. But we know there's going to be at least 6 months until we kind of see anything concrete, as in like before an official release. And I think it doesn't really make a lot of sense to rush it. Don't rush the stuff if you don't need to, especially if you don't have new devices actually coming right away. Like I can understand why you might want to prioritize iOS 16 because you're going to want to launch your newest product, which are probably are coming in
Well, of
September.
course.
But yeah, I think like iPadOS 16 clearly, still needed some work, or they felt so at least. And same with Ventura. And it's like why push it if it's not fixing anything crazy major wrong with the other versions, which it's not. It's more like additional features and things like that. Yeah, so I think this is a smart move. It makes sense. It's nice to have like an official October sort of release window rather than just fall, because technically fall means all the way up until like December 21st or whatever is the first day of winter. Technically, which I doubt we'd ever see them launch something on December 20th. But yeah, it's nice to know that, it is coming for people who are excited about it. There's some exciting features for sure.
Yeah.
I'm excited to sort of see the final version of, or at least the final version in terms of what gets released. Obviously, they'll keep working on it because all features are always changeable. But I am sort of excited to see what iPadOS 16 will bring. I used a lot of the early beta for iPadOS 16, and then I haven't really used it since then. I went back to sort of iOS 15 and just kind of been using that. And so I'm sort of excited to get the official release and kind of dive back into it and really see how it changes my iPad, because I was kind of like a little mixed on iPadOS 16 in the first couple betas, which is why I sort of like gave up on focusing on it and focused on more on Apple Watch and iPhone instead.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what that'll bring. And, if my memory of it from a few months ago was already a little hazy. So we'll have to see.
Yeah. And Apple have had a lot of time to work on it. So
Yeah.
I would assume it'll be substantially better.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of wrinkles ironed out.
Yeah, even more evidence that we're going to see something in October. Logitech may have accidentally leaked two of the products that are coming out. So Logitech, if you don't know, very popular. They make mice, they make keyboards, they make all sorts of accessories, and they're usually quite good. I like Logitech. I actually am using a Logitech mouse right now. I've used plenty of keyboards from them in the past. So I'm always excited to sort of check out their stuff.
Yeah, they make great stuff.
They have something called the Logitech Crayon, which is sort of like,
I reviewed that actually.
Yeah, which is kind
years
of like
ago.
the best alternative to the Apple Pencil for an iPad, most likely.
I would say it's great for kids.
Right.
It's purposely fatter, and it's not a cylinder. It's shaped more like I guess rectangle, like
kind of
like
square,
triangle shaped kind of.
triangle. Okay, yeah.
So I mean, you picture like a kid, kids. I'm a teacher part-time, and kids are constantly rolling pencils off their desks. I mean, quote unquote accidentally, but I mean, that's just how kids are. So the Logitech Crayon is, it's flattened. I don't know why I said triangular. It's flat. So there's nothing to roll. Like it can't roll anywhere. So if a kid sets it down, it's not going to roll off the table or whatever. And it's definitely substantially bigger, so it's easier for small hands to get a good grip on. And if I recall, I wrote the review quite a long time ago, but it had a very narrow. The only reason I wouldn't say it was like the best alternative for the Apple Pencil is because it had a very narrow compatibility. Like it was only compatible with like 1 or 2 iPads at the time, but it seems like with each iPad release, it's compatible with more and more. So it's becoming a better and better alternative to the Apple Pencil.
Yeah, I haven't used it personally like you, but from what I understand and from a couple people I know who have used it, and now your own personal account here, it like you said, it's been getting better sort of since it came out, working with more things, a few more, a few more features and things, and for like kind of a basic Apple stylus, and it is Apple certified. It is actually Apple certified to work with the iPads, which there isn't a lot of those out there. I don't think there's that many. So it is kind of like in ways it's kind of like the biggest competitor, quote unquote, to the
and it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
Too. It's $70, but it's $50 for educators. At least it was when I reviewed it. So with the education discount, it's quite a bit cheaper. It has like a 7-hour battery life, and it supports palm rejection. You don't have to pair it to anything, which is a big deal particularly for kids. You don't have to pair it to the device. You just turn it on and go. And the Smart Tip will adjust the line thickness according to the angle, like how the Apple Pencil 2 does. So it is a really nice device. And yeah, at the time I reviewed it, it was only compatible with 1 device, and it was the 6th generation iPad.
Right.
And this was 2 years ago.
Yeah. So the Logitech Crayon. So the reason why we're bringing this up for context is Logitech kind of updated earlier this week. They updated their Logitech Crayon page, and in the section where it says the iPads it was compatible with, which is, it has been increasingly getting more and more. It had a little note that said iPad Pro 12-inch 6th generation coming soon, and iPad Pro 11th inch 4th generation coming soon. Both of those have been taken down since they're no longer on the page, but that did show up for a little while and does sort of seem to indicate, as we've been hearing, a new iPad Pro, potentially, most likely with the M2 inside of
Right.
it, is coming.
Right, because we know Logitech works very closely with Apple, so it stands to reason that they would know some things. But,
Yeah, I mean, obviously
yes.
we're hypothesizing. We can't say for sure exactly what
Yeah.
Logitech knows and what doesn't. It could have been that they just expect it to work with any new model that might come out, so they put it up there. But
Right,
you'd
that
ha-
could be
you'd
too.
you'd have to.
They may not know anything, and
Mhm,
they're just, assuming, like we all are, that those things will be coming soon, and their
right.
product will be compatible with them.
But it's pretty hard. It's pretty hard not to see the stars align and kind of be like, okay, it sort of makes sense that if they put that, it was likely a mistake,
Yeah,
copy and
yeah,
pasted from some other document that they were trying to update the page. Definitely, it's plausible to think that Logitech knows these devices are coming indeed, and
yeah,
and
but
everything sort of points towards them as well. So.
yeah.
Um, But yeah, so even more evidence that I not only iPads are coming, but that there is going to be some sort of event in the future that very soon. A couple other little pieces of news. I know patents don't mean a lot, but I kind of came across this patent that's come up. It found by Patently Apple, website that kind of tracks Apple's patents. But that actually wants to turn Shazam into, which seems like a much creepier feature than it currently is. So if you don't know, I'm sure you do, but Shazam used to be a standalone software that Apple then bought. You can still get it as an app, but it's also just in all Apple software now. What it does is you can turn it on and be like, and it'll listen to the music around you and it'll tell you what that song is. And then you can go listen to that song on Apple Music and so on and so forth. So it's a music recognition software. However, there's a patent that's been floated that Patently Apple found that wants to make it into not just music recognition, but also sort of being able to tell how you like the music that you're hearing. And it's also looking to expand its range to headphones, mixed reality, iPad, smart contact lenses, heads-up display on vehicle windshields, etc. So not only is it going to be on more devices, but the big thing here is the patent specifically says that it could determine that a user is interested in audio content by determining that a movement, such as a head bob, and trigger the app to identify the tune based on the fact that you're enjoying the movement to the beat. Which seems just crazy to me. Like, imagine if you put in a
It
pair of
does.
AirPods and you're just like walking around with them and you don't have them playing anything, but maybe you have them in because you're just don't want people to talk to you or you're whatever. And then you're in a store and you're just like bobbing your head to a song and all of a sudden Shazam pops up and it's like, seems like you're liking this. Do you want to listen to it? Oh man. It's like, it's one of those technology does get creepy when you think about this stuff, but it's also like kind of cool. Like I get like why that could be useful. But it just seems a little weird.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have more and more technology in the coming years that is gonna be dancing right on the border between cool and creepy, and this is one of them for sure. But I'm also interested in the smart contact lenses and the heads-up display on the vehicle windshield, and we haven't heard anything about this, and it's mentioned in this my understanding is it's mentioned in this, patent
Yeah. So
application. So, does
one
that mean Apple's working on those?
I mean, from what we understand, Apple, from what we can surmise, Apple is. But remember that patents, companies, especially Apple, they'll patent every little
Oh,
thing that they
for
have,
sure, for
right?
sure.
Patents are more of a way to just sort of like protect your intellectual property, just in case it ever becomes something.
Yeah,
Um,
no, of course, I understand that, but
yeah.
it's just interesting that they specifically mention those things. I
Well,
thought it was
and
interesting.
that's yeah, and the same with like as of right now, there is an auto Shazam feature where like if you have the app, the actual Shazam app, which does still exist, on your iPhone, you can turn on like auto Shazam, and then it'll run in the background and identify song like songs for you. Like it won't pop up right away, but like if you go into your history, you'll be like, oh, these are the songs you heard around you today. And you can leave that on. You don't have to turn it on, but you can.
Right.
But that's only on iPhone at the moment. So like for something like this to work, like the head bobbing feature, for example, first of all, it would need a way to track your head. So you would think it would have to be some sort of device on your head, whether that be headphones or a mixed reality headset or something like that. And two, it would have to be like automatically have this sort of auto Shazam feature on it, or at least a way to enable it so that it's always on. So yeah, that I think that is the more interesting part and the less creepy part of this is the fact that it sounds like, getting Shazam on more devices is something that Apple at least potentially has at least thought about in some aspects. Which, if you think about a mixed reality headset, which we're pretty sure Apple has been working on for quite a while, there's some sort of VR or AR something coming down the pipeline at some points. There's too much smoke for there not to be fire there, I think. But when you think about that too, I think that's such an interesting. Like I use Shazam actually quite a bit on my phone. Like I'm interested all the time. I'll be watching TV with my partner on the couch or whatever, and I'll be like, oh man, what's that song? And I'll like pull out my phone like immediately. Like I'm one of those people who kind of has to know as soon as I think of something, I like have to know it. So like I'm constantly Googling celebrities while I'm watching shows. I'm constantly doing all sorts of things. And Shazam is one of those things. And so like the idea of like watching a movie or even just playing a game in like a mixed reality headset and then, realizing I'm really liking the soundtrack or something. And then knowing that, oh, if I go into my Shazam, it'll tell me all the songs that were played, during my time gaming or whatever, I think is actually kind of a cool feature. Perhaps, the sensing my head movement and then deciding if I'm liking it or not, is potentially a little weird, but the idea of like just having auto Shazam kind of on in the background while I'm enjoying content, that way, if I think about it, I can kind of go check my Shazam and see that it's there is interesting to me, especially if, you're listening to headphones or like I said, watching TV or something like that. So interesting to see if Shazam will ever adopt any of this stuff. Obviously, as we mentioned, patents don't usually mean too much other than Apple had an idea once. Somebody scribbled it down on a napkin somewhere and they decided to put a patent on it just to make sure. But yeah, I'm interested to see if Shazam will actually adopt any of this stuff because it could be pretty interesting, albeit some of it kind of creepy. Last two pieces of quick news. Apple's relaunching its referral program for Apple Card. It's still kind of weird and doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of referral programs. Basically, without deep diving into this, essentially, like if you refer a new Apple Card customer, that person that you've referred, so say I referred Karen to be an Apple Card customer, Karen could potentially get up to $100 in daily cash. But me, the person who referred her, gets absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it's the worst referral program I've ever heard of. What's the motivation?
I don't know.
I mean, to help out a friend, sure. But other than that, yeah, Apple's got the wrong end of the stick there.
Yeah, it's
why not split it? Give up to 50 to each. That's how most referral programs work.
In terms of referral programs, the referrer gets nothing, which is just not how, which just doesn't really make sense. So it's back. If you're interested in that, if you know somebody who wanted to jump on the Apple Card,
maybe you could work out a deal with your friend, like whatever amount of daily cash they get, they split it with you.
Yeah. So I'm not sure what Apple's thinking with that. I don't really understand what the point is. My only thought process is like, say I'm really interested in getting my whole family like Apple Cash Card. Say like I think it's the best card I've ever had, which by the way, I don't use Apple Cash Card. I don't even think I can in Canada actually, so I don't even know. But let's just say that's the hypothetical situation. I want my whole family on it or whatever. And one of the selling points is like, oh, you can get $100 of cash if you go do it. Like that's a decent incentive, I guess, if you're in the mood for a new credit card or that's just kind of what you're thinking. But yeah, there's not a lot of incentive on me other than if I love the Apple Card so much that I just want other people to be on it, which seems like there's got to be a very small subset of people that are that enthusiastic about the Apple Card. So yeah, it's back. If that's something that you used or found useful, I'm not sure what Apple is thinking with this. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. Why have a referral program that the referrer gets nothing?
Yeah.
It's a weird one. Apple's decisions are sometimes weird. And the last piece of like funny but like heartwarming news is Ted Lasso and AFC Richmond, the fictional football team or soccer team from the hit show, Apple TV's Plus hit show Ted Lasso, is confirmed for the FIFA 2023 official like video game. Very popular video game by EA Sports. Has confirmed that Coach Lasso and AFC Richmond will be available in multiple game modes in the new soccer title, which is slated to be released on September 30th of this year.
Yeah, that's very cute.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it also just speaks to how big Ted Lasso has gotten. Like a big AAA game company like EA isn't hurting for money. They're not looking for cross sponsorships for no reason. Like they're
Right.
and nowhere does it mention. I mean, there could be something in the background. Maybe Apple had something to do with this, and I wouldn't be surprised if they had some people maybe lobbying EA to try and make this happen. But nowhere does it say that was the case. It just kind of seems like they're at EA probably did a little bit of market research, probably found that like enough soccer fans watch the show, probably that
Yeah,
like if
I
they
bet they got a bunch of emails saying, "You should add Ted Lasso."
so it's to me like something like this, like I'm not a big I've played a FIFA game once or twice. I'm not really a big FIFA fan, but like to me this just like kind of proves how big Ted Lasso has gotten and how
For sure.
how much recognition it actually has, which I think is cool. It's cool that Apple TV Plus or it's really kind of cool when any show sort of like breaks through that cultural
Yeah,
zeitgeist.
yeah.
Um,
Speaking of Apple TV Plus, one of the comments from, Brent, Dennison
mhm,
in the comments, mentioned that, that they're looking forward to the Better Call Saul sequel that on Apple TV Plus. So there is a new show coming by Vince Gilligan, who's the showrunner for Better Call Saul and,
mhm.
Breaking Bad. It's not a sequel necessarily, though. There's been no word about it being any kind of sequel to Better Call Saul. But well, technically, Breaking Bad was the sequel to Better Call Saul because even though Breaking Bad came first, Better Call Saul was the prequel. But anyway, as a fan of both shows, I'm actually very excited about this too. Vince Gilligan is coming out with some kind of genre drama on Apple TV Plus, and Rhea Seehorn, who was one of the stars of Better Call Saul, Kim on Better Call Saul, is starring in it. So I'm really excited about that. I really like her. She was up for um, the uh, the Emmy in Best Actress in a Drama this year. I don't think she
Mhm.
won it. No, she didn't win it because it was Julia Garner from
Yeah.
Ozark. But she's a wonderful actress, and glad that she has another cool project to work on. I'm looking forward to it too. What about are you a fan of those shows, Luke? Are you looking forward to them?
I haven't gotten around to watching Better Call Saul yet. I did watch Breaking Bad when it came out, and I've rewatched it several times. It's a very, very
Oh,
good
so
show.
I think Better Call Saul is actually better. It's a
Yeah,
little bit more slow moving,
mhm.
but it's just such an interesting plot. It's a much Saul is a much different kind of character than Walt. In fact, some people have said that actually the Kim character is more of the Walt, if that makes any sense. It'll make sense if you watch it.
Yeah, I've wanted to check it out, and I'm sure I would like it. And I mean, especially I love Bob Odenkirk in like most things. He's an extremely talented actor and also just like a funny guy. He used to do a bunch of sketch
Yeah.
comedy and stuff too back in
Oh,
the
yeah,
day.
yeah.
I've been a fan of
He's
him for a
more
long
known
time.
as a comedian, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of blurring the lines, I think, with stuff like this in recent years. But yeah, he got to start really big stuff in comedy, and he's a really smart, like quick witted,
Yeah.
kind of guy. But yeah, from
And
what I understand, the next show shouldn't, or at least as far as we know, it doesn't seem to have any sort of connection other than the showrunner
no,
and
I don't think it's in the same world at all. But
yeah.
Vince Gilligan also did The Sopranos, correct?
I actually don't know. I was never a big Sopranos fan. I never really
Oh,
watched it.
okay. Well,
It was
I
kind of a
think
little
those
bit before my time too, like a little bit
okay.
before
Well,
I got
listen,
into
my
TV and
son
watched it.
watched it. He went
Mhm.
back and watched it, um,
Yeah.
way after the fact. But anyway, I would argue that The Sopranos changed television completely and totally from like sort of being lesser than film to being almost better than film. I mean, we've gotten to the point where the most creative we're in the golden age of television,
Yeah.
particularly with all the streaming services and independent studios out there,
Mhm.
that are just doing this incredible work. Where the most creative and incredible work used to be primarily in film, and TV was very formulaic and simple. But I think The
Yeah.
Sopranos changed all of that. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Vince Gilligan does on Apple TV Plus.
Mhm. I believe I mean, just a quick Google search, but I could be wrong, but it said David Chase was the what wrote and produced The Sopranos, but I don't know if that means
Oh,
he was the
okay.
showrunner or not. But
Oh, I don't know. Did Vince Gilligan have anything to do with Sopranos, or am I just completely wrong on that?
I I said, like I said, I have no idea. Let's here we go. This is the part of the iMore show where we Google things not that have nothing to do with Apple, but that's fine. Um, yeah, I mean, I've heard that, and I'm sure I would like The Sopranos. Like, I like crime dramas, I guess, which is not necessarily what it is, but um, yeah, I don't see anything specifically that of Vince Gilligan's involvement in
Okay, well, I'm
Sopranos.
wrong about that, but he has publicly stated that he was inspired by The
Oh,
Sopranos.
for sure. And I've heard other, TV and film buffs talk about, just how important The Sopranos and also like another HBO show like The Wire, super influential to kind of like making TV that more sort of like kind of
Yeah,
film reality sort of. And
right.
I did watch The Wire, even though that was a big
Yeah,
thing.
I know The
I haven't
Wire
gone
was
back and watched The Wire.
that one. I watched maybe half a season. I didn't get into it, but
Mhm.
keep in mind that came after The Sopranos. I'm
Yeah, yeah,
telling you, without The Sopranos, there
yeah.
wouldn't be The Wire, there wouldn't be Breaking Bad. So
Yeah. So
anyway, we're getting a little off topic, but
yeah, that's okay though. But yeah, it's you're totally right about streaming. Like coming back to sort of Ted Lasso, like you know, Ted Lasso obviously a very different show than like Breaking Bad or anything like that. But like the the production value behind it even is just like not what
Mhm.
typical TV shows are anymore. Like and all the streaming services, although some of them are having problems, we hear a lot about, Netflix losing subscribers and things like that. Like they're throwing some serious dough to make this stuff like not only like look good, but like every aspect of it. Like I just recently got caught up on Rings of Power from Amazon Prime. And like, regardless of what you think about the show, like I don't think it's a perfect show. I'm enjoying it. I don't think it's perfect, but like every detail of it, you can tell they've spent money on it. It's like one of the most
Yeah.
expensive show. I think it's the most expensive show ever produced, right? Like it's got an
Oh, yeah.
insane budget. I can't remember, but like everything from the visual effects, the costuming, the background sets, the music, the like literally every detail of that show, you can tell has like hundreds of millions of dollars behind
Yeah.
it. And those are things that like it's even surpassing like movie budgets and like even like
Yeah,
big
I mean,
blockbuster movie
I feel
budgets.
like there are a lot of TV shows where every episode feels like a film used to.
Yeah.
You know,
Um,
and film movies have become, I mean, I hate to say movies have become formulaic because it's not necessarily true, but the ones that you see, the blockbusters in the
yeah.
theaters, they tend to be like the same few franchises over and
Yeah.
over. And like the smart, interesting independent films, they don't go to the big theaters. And if they do, it's like maybe for a month, it's just the landscape has changed
Yeah.
a lot, and there's so much good stuff on television
Mhm.
now.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I love a good Marvel movie. Like I'm a Marvel fan. I love a good
Oh,
Marvel
I
movie.
enjoy it too. There's
Yeah,
certainly nothing wrong with it, but
but
that's not where I go to think.
yeah.
You know?
But I agree. Like the blockbusterness of movies nowadays, especially in the summer, have
Yeah,
all that Hollywood likes to have something that's repeatable. Something that they
right,
like franchises. They like things that
right. Well, we made
they
money off
know.
of this. We're gonna make
Yeah,
money off of the next
exactly.
one too.
That's why we're also in this like reboot era right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, but back to
Um,
Vince Gilligan, he makes television that makes you think,
yeah, totally.
and so I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does on Apple TV Plus.
All
Whatever it
right.
is, I'll watch it. I don't care what the topic is or the genre. I'll give it a watch.
uh, let's talk about the iPhone 14, the iPhone 14 Pro. Um, unfortunately, Stephen couldn't make it here today. He's feeling a little under the weather, so feel better, Stephen, if you're listening. But the iPhone 14 review, which Stephen did, it can be summed up sort of by his title, which is it's a great phone, but it's hard to recommend to anybody.
Yeah, he talked about it a lot last week on the show,
Mhm.
and his review does a really good job of explaining why that sort of, mysterious sounding title,
Mhm.
why he feels that way, and he does a really good job straddling that line between explaining that it really is a great phone, but it's just never a phone that he would recommend to anybody, and, his review goes into detail exactly why.
Yeah, and I mean it. If you definitely go read his review, it's very well thought out, and talks a lot about and he actually kind of compares it to the iPhone 14, but also kind of the Pro version, because he also has a 14 Pro as well that he's kind of been fooling around with recently. So uh, he has got a lot of good insight. Uh, you know, at the end of the day, we've talked about this before, but like it's a very minor differences over the iPhone 13. It's kind of a rehash of the iPhone 13, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad phone. It just kind of means like
Right,
it's just like not as exciting, or not as it's not a phone that you need to upgrade to.
right,
There's nothing about it that really stands out, but there's nothing about it that like also isn't good. It's still the Apple iPhone as you've known, kind of come to know and love. Uh,
right, and it does come in some really nice colors, as Cameron in the comments pointed out.
mhm.
The red is they said the red is hot,
Yeah.
so
I also
I
really,
believe them.
really, I also really like the blue. It's like a bit
It's very
more,
similar to the Sierra blue.
it's similar,
It's
but
really nice.
it's similar, but it's like a little more vibrant than the Sierra Blue,
Yeah.
because the Sierra Blue was famously on
Well,
a 14 Pro, and usually they have more
right,
muted colors. Um,
right, right.
so it's kind of like this the Sierra Blue that's sort of been like turned up a couple notches, which I like.
Yeah,
It's got
yeah,
like a
like a
nice
little more
saturation to it.
saturated.
Yeah. Yeah. So go check out the iPhone 14 review. Karen and I both have iPhone 14 Pros in our hands, like literally right now. And Karen's got the purple version, if you're looking
I'm
there on
trying
the
to make it
screen.
look more purple by turning
Yeah.
it a different way.
And I have the space black, which like I'm not normally a black phone guy, but something about this space black is just beautiful. I find that
Yeah,
like
it is nice.
it's just like, I don't know, the frosted glass.
It's
It's
very
just,
sophisticated looking.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm usually somebody who would go for the colors, but I just like saw the space black, and I saw it in some videos and stuff early, especially like MKBHD's video when he got it out, and I was just like, that looks so nice. So that's the black that she has. Karen has the purple there if you're looking on screen. Um, Karen, what are your thoughts? What are you thinking about using the, what do you love? What don't you love?
I mean, I love it. There's really nothing about it that I don't love.
Mm.
It I've said this before, I'll say it again. I really think that we should not be upgrading every year. It's very silly of us, and I
Yeah.
fully admit that I am ridiculous for doing so. Um, we are in the era where the smartphone has matured, and where the year to year upgrade just is not necessary. And the iPhone 14 makes it very, very clear. There is nobody that should be upgrading from the 13 to the 14.
Mm.
From the 13 Pro to the 14 Pro, it's a little bit more of a difference because of the dynamic island and the 48 megapixel camera and other the brighter screen. There's some larger improvements, year to year improvements. But I mean, I don't even think Apple really intends for anybody, for the most people, other than really tech enthusiasts. I don't
Mhm.
think Apple really intends for most people to get year-to-year upgrades anymore, if they ever intended that. But I think the reason we have upgrades every year is so that when you do need to buy a phone, there's a nice shiny new phone for you to buy. It's not that we should be running out and buying new phones every year.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm really enjoying the 14 Pro. I have yet to really put the camera through its paces, and I need to do that. But I've just been really busy since I've gotten it with work, so I haven't had a chance to go run around, take some fun pictures. But I'm looking forward to doing that. And yeah, and I do love the purple. I actually like muted colors. I tend to wear more muted colors generally,
Mhm.
but the purple is. I would like to see it just be a little bit more purple if I had my druthers, but I'm happy with it. I like the color. The only thing I would say is that I usually use a clear case because I like to show off the color of my phone generally.
Mhm.
And for some reason, I guess because it is somewhat of a muted purple, even the clearest clear case covers up most of the purple. It just doesn't look as purple when it's in a clear case, even a clear case. And
Right.
of course, if you use a completely opaque case, it's gone. You can barely, the camera module is darker and maybe even a little bit less purple than the rest
Yeah.
of the phone. So it is harder to see the purple with a case on. And I always use a case because
Mhm.
I've already dropped this phone like 3 times or 4 times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. That's why I always use a case and the screen protector. I have
Mhm.
not incurred any damage. Um, but yeah, that's why I'm like the case person because I use them. I need them.
Yeah, fair. I go back and forth. Like I love how much a phone feels nice without a case. Like there is like kind of a nice feel to it. But like
Yeah,
I'm also a bit of a klutz. So I usually have a case on my phone. Um and yeah, I kind of bounce around. I like to switch it up. So I usually have a couple on the go. Right now for my black one, I just literally have Apple's just like silicone, like black silicone case that goes with it. Just for something basic. I haven't quite done my research on other ones that I want yet. But I'll probably get a couple more through it, and then I kind of I like the ability to change. I like the ability to kind of switch it up a
yeah,
little bit. Same with like my wallpaper is never the same for like longer than like a week at a time because I just like to keep it fresh.
yeah,
Speaking of that, yeah. So like, the biggest difference is, and we talked about, the iPhone 14, regular iPhone 14 still uses the same chip as last year. Um, the A16, which is in the Pro, it's really not that big of a difference, and you're not really going to notice it, to be honest, going up from the 15 to the 16. In fact, you'll also know that it's not that big of a difference because like Apple, when they launched it, when they talked about the A16, they like, I think they only maybe had one or two screens where they compared it to the A15, but they went right to comparing it to like the A13, which is a couple years
right,
old already.
right,
And you can tell that like it's because like our chips can only get so good in these machines, like there's limits
right,
on technology, there's limits on what you can do with inside the space, the confines. Like always, from now on, the chips are likely going to be pretty, until something big happens in chip technology. I think it's going to be, it's never going to be like this wow factor. I think like
right,
people need to, that's another thing that people need to like get out of their mind. I think like that the higher numbers and stuff don't always necessarily mean anything when it comes to the A series chips anymore. Um, it's more about, how you use the phone and what you notice it. And speaking of that, I think like obviously, as the Pro phones have been for a little while now, the camera is where a lot of the upgrades have happened.
yeah,
Obviously,
yeah.
the
And
biggest.
Christine's review will be linked in the show notes. Christine's review of the iPhone 14 Pro, which is also a great review. I recommend everybody reading because it goes into detail
Mhm.
about everything you wanted to know about the iPhone
Yeah,
14 Pro.
and I helped Christine out a little bit with some camera testing for her iPhone 14 Pro review, and I tested the camera sort of against the iPhone 13 Pro and also my iPhone 11 just to sort of see comparison. And I mean, here's the thing: if you're a more regular user and like you're not really like a pro photographer or like a hobbyist photographer, but you have the Pro phone for various other reasons why also people just like Pro phones, you know. Um, it's not like the camera is so incredibly better that like every time you take a picture, you're going to be like, wow, this is just so amazing. However, um, there are some really interesting kind of little minute details I found in my testing. So when taking the same shots with like last year's 13 Pro and this year's 14 Pro, I noticed that the 13 tended to be a little more oversaturated. Not like, or a little more saturated. I shouldn't say oversaturated, but a little more saturated compared to the shots on the 14 Pro, which I think has more to do with the fact that, all the cameras on the 14 Pro have slightly bigger sensors, which are absorbing more light in a more detail, kind of with every shot. Which that's where you're really going to notice the difference is there's two big differences I think that most people will notice. The 48 megapixel size of the main lens, it's not so much that like, oh, the 48 megapixel pictures look so much better. It's that you have so much more to work with
Right, as far
in
as cropping
yeah,
and editing,
yeah,
there's so much more information contained in the photo, so
yeah.
you're not gonna lose sharpness, you're not gonna lose,
Mhm.
the, clarity of the image when you go and crop it to extremes and,
Yeah, and
um
actually our, like, sister or our related cousin site, Tom's Guide, they actually did a
We're
really
owned by the
cool
same company.
yeah, owned by Future, but Tom's Guide did a really cool, photography comparison where they actually took, like, cropped images, from the full 48 megapixel, and
Mhm.
cropped them in on certain details, and you can just see how much clearer it is
Yeah.
than the 12 megapixel sensor, and, like, are you gonna notice that when you're just looking at a picture just on the screen? No,
Yeah,
but when
no,
you
you wouldn't notice that
yeah,
on looking scrolling through Instagram or something,
yeah,
but
but when you're really kinda getting into that editing detail or, like, most photographers, when you take photos, you crop them to sort of get the best composition, the best contrast, like,
right.
all sorts of things. You're just gonna have so much more options now in your editing software of choice to be able
Yeah.
to do that more effectively. And then same with the sensors, just kind of like one thing I really noticed, I'd say like night mode still relatively functions pretty similarly. Um, but interestingly enough, it won't activate automatically because it activates automatically when it notices it's in low light settings where it could use it. It won't activate automatically nearly as often on the iPhone 14 Pro, I think because it doesn't necessarily need it quite as often. You can get into some low light situations with the iPhone 13 Pro, and it'll like immediately be like, oh, okay, the lights are too low. Let's turn on night mode. Whereas like I can
I
be in the
see.
same situation with my iPhone 14 Pro and it'll be like, you don't have to turn on night mode right now. I can still take a picture right now and it'll be
Okay.
like, okay.
Yeah,
Which I think is interesting. It kind of shows the ability of those sensors to sort of actually pick up that extra light.
yeah.
Um,
I wish I could remember where I saw it. It was on another website where they did I had a side-by-side comparison where they had taken a picture and it was very dark. It was
mhm,
taken in a low light situation and you could barely see anything. It was just such a dark photo. And then next to it, they had edited that photo and by bringing up the exposure, and it was a gorgeous photo. Like I couldn't believe. Usually, when you do that, when you take a very dark photo and you try to brighten it up
mhm,
in edit, it never looks quite right. It looks weird or off. But this picture looked really great. So I'm excited to really put the camera through its paces. I
mhm.
haven't had opportunity to do that. I really only take pictures when I travel.
Yeah.
So I don't have anything to take pictures of at home. Just
Mhm.
I'm not interested enough in photography to just take pictures around my house. I need to
Yeah.
go somewhere interesting and find something cool to take pictures of. So
But yeah, in my
um,
testing, I've
okay.
I've found that the iPhone 14 Pro is like it's a little it has a little more contrast, I feel like, than compared to the 13 Pro, and it also seems to be a
Mhm.
little more true to color, a little less saturated than the 13 Pro. But they're like really minor differences that I'm really like nitpicking at when I'm looking at my stuff kind of side by side, sort of for these comparison reasons. Um,
Yeah,
I don't think there's something that like the average person is just gonna like notice just by looking at one right away, unless of course, like I said, pro photographers that are even way more experienced than I am. I'm a,
yeah,
I'm a amateur hobby photographer at best. And
right.
pro photographers can really do. I've seen some very cool shots on Twitter already that have been shot on the
Yeah.
iPhone 14 Pro. There
Well,
was one,
we'll keep playing with the cameras and we'll report back our
yeah,
experiences in the weeks to come.
yeah,
So what is your absolute number one favorite thing about the iPhone 14 Pro?
yeah. So obviously everyone's talking about the dynamic island, and it's not that that isn't cool, but I actually think the thing that's I've probably noticed the most, and probably because I've been outside taking pictures so often for comparisons and stuff, is the screen is brighter. The screen is brighter and gets brighter in direct sunlight, which makes it much easier to see in direct sunlight. Like it is very noticeable when I take my iPhone 13 Pro outside and when I take my iPhone 14 Pro outside and I look at in direct sunlight and I like stand so that the sun is directly on them and I like turn the brightness all the way up. There's a big difference. And it's very handy quality of life feature that I really appreciate because like as someone who does like to take photos and take it out or if it's not even just for photos, just like anything you use your phone outside for, um it's just going to be easier to see. And I've really noticed an improvement. I've noticed that I'm not struggling as much to kind of get the right angle on the phone so the sun isn't in my eyes, or like, it's not like it's perfect. I mean, it's not like it's always like if you're literally looking at the sun directly and you're trying to like, use it as like a magnifying glass, you're obviously going to get glare and you're still going to see, some of that happen. But like, it's very noticeable to me at the difference that it makes, and how little I need to like try and like find the right thing, or be like, what, I'm just going to step into the shadow for a second so I can check this text message and things like that. It's very noticeable. That's actually been like a standout feature that I feel like people don't talk about enough. I understand that it's minor, but it really affects like everything you do on the phone. So I'm super excited to see that and to see it work so well. How about you, Karen? Before we head off here for the day, what is like your absolute number one favorite thing about the phone so far?
Well, I'm going to be really basic and say that the dynamic island, because
It's really cool.
it is new and different, and the things that Apple is doing with it already are really nice. It just gives you information about what you're doing, what app you're in, what's playing, and you can tap on it for quick little information without having to go into the app or close down the app, that whatever other app you're working on. But also I'm excited to see what third-party developers do with it in the weeks to come. Like our friend Christian Seelig, we had on the show a
Yeah.
couple of months ago, the developer of a couple of apps, including Reddit Apollo. And so he has implemented little pets on the dynamic island. You can choose from like 5 different pets. And I have the little doggy. If you are watching on YouTube, you can see the little dog, and right now he's just kind of sitting there wagging his tail, but sometimes he runs up and down the dynamic island, and sometimes he sleeps, and you can see like the little Z's coming from him, and it's just really cute. So and that's just one developer. So I haven't noticed any other developers that have done really neat things with the dynamic island, but I expect in the weeks to come there will be a lot of fun implementations that we're going to see.
Yeah, totally. It is a really cool feature. And like I said before, I wasn't really intending on getting a phone this year. And then the dynamic island is kind of what pushed me over the top. And I've been loving it. And I can only imagine the future of this thing. I think once Apple develops it even more and third parties get a hold of it, like I think that kind of the sky's the limit. Like, it's sort of a task manager a bit at sometimes, like, because it kind of like, if you swipe your music up and then you can long press to just get the little cutout, or you can like just press it to go to an app. It's like kind of a bit of an app switcher, a little bit of a multitasker. It shows interesting information. I think the sky's the kind of the limit on the dynamic island. So like, it is a really cool feature. Is it absolutely
just beginning?
Yeah, it's just beginning. Like it's not, it looks cool, and it's definitely, it's hyped up a little bit, maybe more than it should be right now. But I think in the future, it's going to be a big part of iOS going forward. And I think Apple's going to do more and more with it.
And I just feel like it's such a good example of making lemonade out of lemons.
Totally.
Nobody likes having a notch or a pinhole or an exclamation point or whatever, a pill, whatever. But Apple just kind of changed the conversation and turned it into something really cool. So
yeah, exactly.
I appreciate innovation like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And we're pretty sure one day Apple will kind of get all that stuff underneath the screen, but who knows when that'll be. Technology has to advance for that to really happen, I think. But if they ever do manage that, I actually think that dynamic island is so cool that it could stick around past the point of actually needing it, but then it could like completely disappear, right? It can completely disappear when you're not using it.
Or it could change into something totally different.
Yeah. So I actually think it's
why we love Apple, because Apple just comes up with cool stuff like this.
Yeah. I really see a lot of potential future uses for it, and I'm excited to see where it goes. And excited for a lot of third-party developers to really get into it. That's our show. Thanks for tuning in. If you've been watching or listening live, we really appreciate you. Thanks for commenting, letting us know your thoughts on the 14 Pro and kind of everything in between. If you're not listening to us live and catching us in your podcatcher of choice, thank you so much for downloading and listening to us each week. We really, really appreciate it. If you ever want to reach out to us, ask us questions, let us know how you're enjoying the iPhone 14 or the iPhone 14 Pro. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. You can tweet at us at iMore. or hit us up on Instagram at iMoreGraham. As always, I want to thank Jim Metzendorf, our audio editor, for making us sound so good. And Karen, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Luke.
Yeah, talking about iPhone 14, and I'm sure there's going to be much more stuff to talk about in the future. And hopefully, in just a few weeks, we'll know exactly when that October event is going to be, and then we'll be able to talk all about the cool advancements coming to iPad and Mac. That's what I'm crossing my fingers for, because I'm excited about iPad, new iPad stuff. I'm always excited about that. Until next week, that's our show, and we'll say goodbye.
Bye.